All right, guys, we're moving on to the back door. A lot of what we learned on the front door is going to apply back here. There's some subtle differences. There's some differences in bracketry, but overall it's pretty much the same. And so we're going to start right in the same spot. We're going to take this upper panel off. And so again, you have 4 bolts that hold that upper panel on, with the addition of 2 bolts that you would see that again marry the top panel to that middle panel. So once we remove that, we're going to go right into drilling the holes for our handle. Okay, we've already done that on the front. We've showed you the method, but basically you're going to have a template for the rear door. So you want to make sure not to get those mixed up front and rear. But again, you're going to match this top body line. You're going to match this front body line with the edge, or the you'll see a thin line on there that you can cut out around. Go and tape that on, drill your holes, install your handle. And so at this point, we're going to go ahead and take a look at installing the upper door skin, and we'll be right back with that. All right, guys, as we look at this rear door panel, it's going to be situated this way. I want to really get a good look right here. There's a little notch here that's vital to when you're putting this thing on. It can be a little cumbersome once you do it once, and hopefully you've got a buddy, because you're going to learn a little bit there, and getting this notch to line up with this front stiffener down here at the base. And so let me go ahead and put that on. I will say that the way we're going to put this on, last time we kind of had it flared out and came in. This time we're going to kind of angle it out as we're just watch that that cutout. You want to wrap it around and then set it in place. And just like we did on the front, we're going to go ahead and install a few of pieces of hardware just to keep us aligned as we're going through. So I'm going to pop one there in the front. I'm going to put one here in the back, and then I can go ahead and start to attach to that upper portion of the stiffeners with the 4 bolts that we previously took out when we took that top panel off. Okay, so we've got one in there. I'll run around and do these other 3 real quick, hopefully. There we go. And we're on to that last bolt. The next thing that we'll be looking to do is install bracketry for the window tracks here in the rear, and we'll move into the installation of the window tracks and the window. All right, guys, again, another very similar step that we're going to take here is on these 4 bolts that are holding the lower portion of the door to the hinge. We're going to uninstall each one of these bolts, only one at a time, and we're going to put in the steel washer that's going to help with the alignment of the door over time. And so as you do that, just like we did on the front, go ahead and leave that second one out, and we're going to install a bracket that is very, very similar in shape and size. It looks very similar to the same bracket we installed on the front. The only difference between the two is the one on the front is a little bit wider. This one's a little bit more narrow, and so we want to be sure that we're putting the proper bracket on the front and on the rear in order to get this to work right the first time. And so we'll go ahead and install this bracket. So we put our bracket on, we put our steel zinc plated washer on, and we're going to go ahead and install our nut. And as we saw last time, you can go ahead and turn that bracket up, tighten it just a little bit, hand tight. That way we can still adjust it. Next, we're going to go ahead and install the rear window track, and then we'll install the window and the front window track. All right, guys, we're going to talk window tracks again, and this can get very wordy and complicated, but basically when we look at this rear door, when these were flat parts, it's the exact same flat part. When we bent them left and right, or driver and passenger, front and rear. And so as we look at this and you go to install, just make sure that you've grabbed a mirrored pair of the window tracks. Now I will say again, let's look down here at these 3 holes. For the rear window tracks, there's going to be 1, 2, 3 openings down here. On the front rear window track, there was only 2. So we've got 3, we're ready to install. Set this guy here. And again, guys, we're going to start off, we are using button head bolts here. We're going to start off on this top bolt there with a nut. And again, we don't want to tighten this all the way down. We're going to go finger tight right now so that we have some adjustment. And again, the adjustment on this rear window track is all the way back to get started. Worked out really, really well for us there on the front. Button heads are a little challenging. There we go. Okay, now we're going to tie with some of our flange bolts. We're going to go ahead and tie the rear window retainer into the bracket we previously installed. And again, this is a more narrow bracket, so you're a little bit tighter space to work in. I would suggest sliding the nut and having it flush on the back side of that bracket to where you can then start to finger tighten the flange part. So I'm going to go in with the nut first, hold that down with my finger, and we'll tighten. Okay, so guys, we're gonna leave this loose right now. We're gonna go ahead and push that all the way to the back while we have it loose, and tighten these down. We'll be right back. We're gonna put in the window and put on the front window track. All right, guys, here's one thing that we tried to avoid with all of our heart, because I don't like this next step, but it's necessary. It's still going to function just fine, but it's not something that's typical for us to request of you to do, and that's dealing with this latch handle. So as you can probably tell by the bracketry on the door, we're going to have this front window track, and it's going to feed right there at that handle. With so many of these out in the field, and with the desire to have the modular upgrade, we needed to do something here. And so it's very simple. You can use a crescent wrench or just your bare hands, but basically what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to bend that handle over I'm not a very big guy. I'm not a very strong guy. It doesn't take a whole lot. You don't have to put a bunch of force on it. But basically, you want to get a little bit of separation here so that when we put that window track in, there's no clearance issues. Okay, let's go ahead and put this window in. I'm going to put the front track on and see how the alignment works out. Now there will be a little bit of a difference as we go to put the front window track on. We don't have to worry about event windows, so we can go and place all of the bolts in where they should go. Okay. There again, guys, we've made sure that here at the rear, I'm going to show it on the front, that edge trim is seated right here up next to the nylon and the stainless washers, so that we're in the proper track. Now we'll install this front, and again, just like we did at the rear, we're going to watch out for that handle at the bottom. I just modified, if you will, and we're going to want to push that over as much as we can, and we'll go ahead and pop that hardware in. Again, we're using button head hardware on this step, so you'll have the button head to the outside. You'll have an aluminum coated washer to the outside as well, and then we're simply using a flange nut, a serrated flange nut here on the interior. Okay, and so this will be the last button head that we use as we go down to the bottom. We're going to be using a hexed flange bolt, and that hex flange will be on the exterior. I'm going to go ahead and place that nut with my hand there at the back, and then attempt to tighten from the rear, maybe a little bit from the front as well. Now that I've got it threaded, I can go ahead and tighten that in. So let's see where we're at with this window adjustment. We got a little bit that I would say I'd want it a little bit tighter than that. That way you don't get any rattling there at the bottom. And so what we're going to do in this instance is we're going to take and try to pull this in as much as we can, roll it up and down, see where we're at. We'll tighten that up. If we're still not there, then we're going to go to this back retainer and we're going to move it forward. So we would loosen that retainer, move it forward so that we're able to get this to track precisely the way that we want it to. We'll be back in just a second. All right, guys, we're going to put on the C-pillar to the modular cab upgrade. And so we're going to start off very similar bracket that we saw at the front of the unit. That's going to go right here. Again, this is a place you don't want to over tighten. You don't want to strip out the nuts that are in the factory unit. That can be a pretty big pain. But the difference again with this looks very, very similar, although this is just larger. It's longer here. Each flange is a little bit longer, and so make sure as you're going through your install, if you run into something where you go, man, this just isn't lining up, make sure you got the proper brackets there. I did roll down this window. It gives me a little bit more. It gives me more options as to where I'm going to place my hands and how I can get to things. So that's a pretty quick, easy install. Not a lot of adjustment in this one. It's not needed. We know where we want that B pillar here at the base. And so now let's go to the B pillar. And we're simply going to, I'm going to step inside the unit here. We're simply going to feed this in here. And just about like that. Kind of check here at the top. You want to be at least close. You want to make sure you're not sticking over some lip or anything like that. And then This is a little bit of a trick. It's not too challenging, but it takes some getting used to. So you will feed in a button head with a black coated aluminum washer. So now, okay, we're pretty close to going ahead, and we're going to mount these brackets here at the back. It is the exact same bracket, so you can either use one top or bottom, vice versa, doesn't matter. We're going to go ahead and install the proper hardware for that. To be noted on these brackets, you already have nuts that are welded to the back of that bracket, and you're going to slide this in between the roll bar and the bracket that came factory. And so basically you're just going to slide this up on there and get some bolts started. We're not necessarily ready to tighten anything down just yet. We want to kind of get everything in place. And as we do that, I think it's pretty apparent where we're going to bolt, but we're going to line up the bolt holes in the B-pillar to these brackets. We're going to get it all adjusted properly, and then we'll tighten that down. I'm going to go ahead and finish installing these button heads on the outside, again leaving them loose for adjustment. Right, a couple more button heads with washers. This time on the interior, you are going to have a flange nut that we'll use. Let's see here, nice tight fit. Get a nut there. And let's see how close we are here. Very nice. Okay, and so some of the things that we're going to look at on this B-pillar when we go to adjust, that really looks pretty good. We're going to have a little bit of adjustment back here. I'm going to I like to see a nice even body line. I like to see a nice even body line. That's going to help us seal against there, and then it's just a better look. Like to make sure that our body lines running horizontally are matching, and so at this point I'd be pretty pleased with it. Go ahead and tighten it down. If it moves a little bit while you're tightening it down, you know, go ahead and visually inspect it, make sure it's exactly what you want, and then we'll move on from there. All right, guys, we're on to the last step. This is going to apply to the rear door and the front door, and it's 2 pieces of edge trim that you'll put on each door. I'll go ahead and start by putting the longer piece. You're going to attach that to the rear stiffener, and you're just going to simply apply that to the short flange on that rear stiffener. What that's utilized for is as your window comes down, we are fitting in a fairly tight space here, and so when you get down here to the bottom, you don't want this window moving around a whole lot. And we had we were in a place where we're driving around, we hear a little bit of chatter down here, and so we wanted to put some edge trim between the polycarbonate and that metal piece. So that's what we've done there. Now as we look towards the upper portion here, we have another piece of edge trim that we're going to install right here. This is going to install on the front window track for both front and rear doors, and it provides a nice place to get your hand in for a handle. It's nice, solid, sturdy. When that window's down, you can grab this other way, but we want to make sure that people and parts are protected in all of this. A couple other things to cover. There are going to be half doors that have been out in the field. They've been exposed to mud, dirt, dust, debris, water, whatever you can think of, they've probably been exposed to it. And so as you put a new modular upgrade right on top of something that's been out in the field, you can see a difference in the pigment or the color or the richness of the black, and you might get some questions on that. It's a part of the program. When you put something new on top of something a little bit older, you're going to see some of those changes. We've seen it so far. It hasn't been drastic. Most people wouldn't notice it. We noticed it. We figured we'd let you guys know that that's something that can happen. Something that we all know, our last topic of the day, is that none of these roll bars are exactly the same. There's tolerance built in. We build tolerance into our product, and we'd love for everything to fit perfect the first time. So not only do you go through your adjustments, but what we've found after that adjustment process is that sometimes we're not getting the desired seal that we like, mainly here across the top. And what we want to do is we want to go ahead and take that door. So we saw it on this unit, which is a 2017 or 18, and we saw it on that other side where this rear portion was not meeting, it was not meeting flush like you see here on the driver's side, right? So what we had to do is we had to go ahead and take this bolt loose, and once we took this bottom bolt on the front window track loose, we were able to kind of press in, recheck the fitment, press in, recheck the fitment until we get to a point where we're happy with the fitment that we have. And after we're done, we're going to tighten that bolt back up, and then we're going to shut that door and be on the road. So if you guys have any questions about install, fitment, we'd love to help you. Hopefully our install guide and video are sufficient, but if they're not, give us a call. Thanks.